welcome back on this Groundhog Day to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, where we help you grow your practice and serve more patients so that you can leave a greater legacy behind, a greater impact on the community. My name is Mark Thackeray. I am your host and excited to be here with you. I have Dr. Weston Spencer back on the show today. He's a cosmetic dentist out of La Jolla, and we are diving into the importance of numbers, of KPIs in particular, key performance indicators. We're going to talk about exactly what those are, how they can impact your practice, and even 8 specific KPIs that you can start using to gauge the success of your practice, both as a doctor, both as from in the hygiene team, and just give you more clarity moving forward. One of the things that I loved about our conversation was just how KPIs can serve as a sort of scorecard for you and your team to know how to play the game, to know what's actually being measured in your practice, and how to align yourselves so that you're all rowing in the same direction. It's a fantastic episode. I hope you'll enjoy it. And before we get started with the interview, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, SPP Dental Partners. They are a group that provides support to your practice. They are not a DSO, and they can come in and provide any type of assistance that you need. You know, you retain the autonomy, you retain ownership of the practice, but they provide support in terms of, it could be marketing, it could be recruiting and HR, it could be billing, it could be just getting you better pricing on supplies and inventory management. There's a whole litany of things that they can do to support you and your practice. They're a partner group. It's all about partnership. It's not about acquisition. So do me a favor, go check them out, sppdental.com. That's SPP, as in saving private practice, dental.com, sppdental.com. Now, let's get it. Let's go hear from Dr. Spencer. All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode. So excited to have Dr. Weston Spencer here with me. He is a cosmetic dentist out of La Jolla, California. He's been on the show before. He's done a lot of things, actually. We grew up together. We've known each other for a long time. And it's been so fun to see the trajectory of his career too, and just really taken off. He's become a very big influencer in the dental world. He's a key opinion leader for Straumann, for Kerr and Sprint Ray. And like the last time we had him on, we had him talk about him scaling his practice from 500,000 to 2.5 million, and the steps that he took to do that. So if you're interested, go back to listen to that episode number 76. But he's also one of the founding partners of a dental partnership group called SPP Dental. And we'll probably talk about that towards the end. But Wes, thanks so much for jumping on, my man. How you doing?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks again, Mark. Good to be back and talk some more. Things have been really good. Yeah, super busy. Good start to the year for sure. I think most people are probably feeling super optimistic in 2024 right now. So that's good. And yeah, very busy with our dental partnership group. It has been growing a lot. We've had some more partners join our group. We're up to about 15, 16 offices strong now in terms of connection there. And that's really good and fun to see that kind of take off. So it's keeping me busy for sure.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes, man. I mean, you're doing a lot of things, both from a practice standpoint and then with the group, and then you've got family above, on top of that. So
yeah, my daughter's birthday today too. So yeah, we got 15 8-year-olds coming over this afternoon. So that's gonna be fun.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. Awesome little Groundhog Day birthday. Very cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, today we wanted to talk about key performance indicators, some KPIs, what those are, what to look at, why they're important, because I think when we're talking to a lot of practices, and you might find this, be true as well. When I'm talking to practices, a lot of them just don't have KPIs in place. They're doing so many things. They've got their to-do list is a mile long, and they're managing people, and they're just wearing all these different hats. And sometimes putting together these KPIs or list of KPIs or goals even just is not on their radar. It's just so far, it's one of those things that would be nice to do, but they just never do. So talk to me a little bit about that. Why do you think that this is a big challenge for practice owners first? And then let's talk about the importance of KPIs.
Well, one, they don't know how to and what to look for and how to set it up, right? Like I wouldn't have gotten into tracking KPIs very well unless early on in my career, I connected with a consultant who did about 3 months with me. I've never been a huge proponent of consultants.
Hmm.
I don't like them for long periods of time. I like them to come in, analyze, diagnose, give recommendations, and then let us do it, and then kind of let me go back to leading, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want somebody else in my practice to have to like take on that leadership role. But if we can be taught something that we're not doing that's going to help us be more effective, then I'm all in on it. And early on in my practice, I took we did for a few months with a consultant, and one of the things she brought in was a really good metric or KPI tracker that was going to just be a Google sheet, right? So at
Yeah.
least it just be input, really some basic stuff into one that everything kind of got aggregated in. So we would use, so my hygienists and still do to this day at the end of every day, kind of put in a few numbers that they can easily get from our practice management software that it is not like my practice management software isn't giving me it in one place the way I wanted it to, right? And then I have some assistants. Maybe I'll be adding something, and then my integrator or office manager in my practice also is putting in some stuff. That's all kind of aggregating on a daily basis. So at the end of the month, it's all there. All the information I need is just automatically there, right? And to your point, like, why don't we do that? Because you don't know how to do that. Like, I'm not like, to this day, if somebody asked me to make a Google Excel spreadsheet, something like that, oh my gosh, like my blood pressure just goes up. I'm like, I can look at a good one, and there's nothing I love better than looking at a really sexy spreadsheet that's
Yeah.
been built, but ask me to build one, can't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so, however that needs to be digested, whether you're using the practice management software, and a lot of good cloud-based practice management software have dashboards now. We use CareStack, and that does have some good dashboards, but you got to understand how to get the data out in order to get it. Curve has some good ones. Obviously, Dental Intel, Dental Intelligence, Dental Intel is a great company that if you've got a non-cloud-based software, they're going to connect really, really well with all your data and put that in front of you in a nice dashboard. So you can get a lot of it automated now, whereas like the guys in my generation who grew up over the last 15 years, we kind of had to extract it ourselves to get it. But the difficulty of knowing how to get it, and then what does it mean, and then what do you do with it now?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's why I think some people like haven't really jumped on the bandwagon of understanding what KPIs are and what they should be looking at.
So yeah, and that's a great point. So when when this concept was first presented to you, did you just kind of naturally embrace that, or did it take some time, or do you feel like you could see the importance of it, you just didn't know how to do it?
Yeah, I could see the importance of it, and I just didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
Right. And I didn't know which ones. I usually, when I was a first brand new business owner, I remember sitting down at the computer, like, what KPIs for dental office manager,
Yeah, totally.
And then I'm like, Gary Cady and some of these other guys that are like already doing stuff like, you should look at this and this and this. Okay, well, what is that? Like, and how do I get that out? Right. And so I was starting to dabble, but I didn't know what to really, and what ones were important to me yet. And over the years, some might be important to some and some might be important to others. And then I have that are important to me. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point too, is that it's an evolution, right? I mean, you're going to identify those things that are important to you, important to your practice, that align with what you're trying to do long term, and that's what you're going to want to be focusing on. So as you've started to, I mean, you've had several years now. When did you first start using KPIs, would you say?
I bought the practice in 2014, and just before that, I was starting to gain knowledge in there, but didn't know really how. And then into 2015, a year into ownership, is when I was like, I'm missing some stuff, and we're working on trying to build hygiene. Needed a couple other transitions at the front office of things that we were doing and not doing well, and we wanted a little extra help from that. And that's when I kind of joined with the consultant for a little bit. She told me, she's like, oh, you have a good knowledge of some of this stuff already. Let me help you really kind of get organized with that, and then help us create these trackers.
That's cool. So at least 8+ years using KPIs. What have you seen from both personal level as the practice owner, as well as from the perspective of your team? Like how have KPIs helped you as an owner as well as your team move forward with what you're doing?
Well, when you start to dive into it, especially, like, I feel like one of the best ways to utilize KPIs in the beginning is in the hygiene department, right?
Yeah.
Because here's a part of your business that should be generating revenue for your practice, and you don't always know if it is, and you don't know how productive the hygiene team is, and you don't know how to compare that productivity to what is normal. Because I think that's what dentists, don't you think dentists just always want to feel like, am I doing it like
Yeah.
everybody? Am I doing normal?
Am I doing what
You
I
know what I
should be
mean? I
doing?
just want to at least know, like, I'm not below average
You're right.
on things, right?
Yeah.
So KPIs help you to know that, because then you can kind of look up or find out from your colleagues, well, what are you guys doing in these numbers? And then you have numbers to compare to. And like, oh, okay, I think I'm good. But like, then you've got to take that next step as the leader of your practice to decide, well, where do we want to be? Where should we be? And where are we now? And so when we started, to give you an example, like we didn't do any, when I took over the practice, there was no 4910 code, the periodontal maintenance code. And that's a really important code, because that's like a maturity of hygiene patients starting to understand, like, there's more to just coming in and getting polishing on your teeth, right?
Yeah.
And if they need some periodontal therapy, which is going to lead to periodontal maintenance, then how many of those are we doing? And we did zero. When I did a practice analysis on the practice I was buying, there were zero 4910 codes.
Oh, wow.
So it was all pro fees,
Yeah.
right? And everybody's a little bit different in what they think should be, right? But ultimately, I knew we were like way, way off, and we needed to grow. And so it allowed me to have conversations, meaningful conversations with my hygienist, and say, like, we're at zero, and this is where I'd ultimately like to be in a few years. Let's start making like progress towards that. But we got to know how we're doing each and every single month to kind of be able to get there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You have to have that baseline in order to measure things against. If you don't
yeah.
have that, then it's hard to, you just don't know. And you don't have anything to compare it to. So, okay. So you're starting to see, so you lay that out for the long-term vision. KPIs help you kind of streamline your efforts, or at least align your efforts to that specific destination. How was it difficult to get the team involved on this? Your hygienist, for example?
It was depending on the person, and some of
Yeah.
my older hygienists that had been around for a long time that were contributing to the 04910s at
Yeah.
that point struggled. And in all honesty, kind of either retired or moved on, and that was okay. And what we wanted to do was build a program where patients didn't feel pressure, but they had to be aware of the problems. And then we could see from month to month, year to year, that we were kind of growing in that, which meant that and patients were sticking around. So we're doing a good job of educating and moving in the right direction. And patients aren't leaving because we're diagnosing periodontal therapy.
Yeah. 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 And as I think about it, I mean, from a team perspective, what I love about KPIs is it gives them a measuring stick. It gives them a scorecard. They know how to play the game. They know what they're going to be judged on. And so they can perform accordingly. I mean, when you don't have that in place, it's so much harder, because you're always kind of wondering, am I, like you were saying earlier about dentists, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? But when you have it outlined as a KPI, as something that you're going to do every single month, you're going to check this. This is what our goals are. Here's above average, here's below. Then you know exactly what to expect going into it. And I think that's part of the magic of KPIs, is that it aligns everyone together, and so you're rowing in the same direction, instead of everyone kind of off on their own, wondering, are we going this way? Or are we going that way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You got to have something to, again, benchmark against. We do that with our fees, right? Don't we go and say, like, okay, well, I want to know what everybody else is charging in my zip code, so you can go pay for that, get an idea, and then compare your fees. And then you start to raise your fees, saying, like, well, I want to be in 60, 70, 80, 90% range on that. And so that's great. We do that with our fees. But we should be doing that with a whole lot of numbers in our practice, so that we can kind of really say, hey, are we on track with what we want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, another thing that comes to mind when I think about KPIs is just it's the proactive approach to seeing potential problems in the horizon and saying, what can we do now to prevent those? So if you're seeing some of those numbers dip, and you realize that there's a connection between this, I mean, reappointments, for example, then 6 months down the road, you're going to see that, hey, there's not much going on right now. We're going to need to push and fill those spaces. And so it allows you to have that ability to prepare and proactively do something about it, instead of being reactive when that comes up.
Yeah. Let me say probably one of the best benefits, and I hope people are listening to this. As a business owner, if you don't have data to back up what you're doing in terms of compensation for your team members, right? Then when your team members come to you and ask you for raises, which is everybody's like, that's when it's like, oh, okay, I got my reviews coming up, or I know this person's asking for a raise. If you don't know, then you're just throwing it at the wall, right? But if you have benchmarks and you know you're doing something and say, hey, I know we're here and most offices are here, and that's why I'm trying to grow with you right now, right? And we're trying to get up to here. So we've had those conversations, and I was in such a better place to have like educated conversations with my hygiene team, with my assistants, with my office manager, because I knew what numbers were and where they should be, and why kind of like, hey, compared with where we should be, we're just not there yet. So I can't like increase you 20% because the business isn't doing that, but you need to help me get there. And then, so that's point number one. It helps you in those moments, right?
Right.
But then in order to make the decision of how do I compensate my team, I am so much heavier on bonus type compensation. We have a base that in my opinion is fair, but everybody wants to make more. And I'm like, well, every year that we're going to have a review, we're going to talk about really what's coming from your bonus, and your bonus is based off of some of these KPIs, daily, monthly, quarterly KPIs that I'm reviewing. And if we're hitting those, I'm bonusing you this amount. So your base may be here, but technically between everything else, you're making an additional $5 an hour, you know, off of all of this. So you may see that that's what it looks like on your pay stub, that's your base hourly, but you're also making this bonus divided by how many hours you're here.
Right.
That's how much you're getting paid. Right. And so I get asked so many times as a business owner, like, well, what bonuses do you do? Right. I have individualized bonuses for my assistants that's different from my hygienists, that's different from my hygiene coordinator, and that's different from our office manager. Everybody plays an individual role on that team. And I have KPIs that I can look at when I'm going to review and say, okay, well, how are we doing? And then what am I bonusing you on? And are you doing this many of those, you know? So, and they're very, very specific bonuses that should get them $2, $3, $5, $10 more an hour, depending on, you know, what their bonus is tied to.
Yeah. That's so exciting too, because I feel like it builds this culture of, hey, we're results oriented. You know, I mean, we're gonna set these goals. We're gonna do it. If you do them, you're gonna be well compensated for it. You know, and then just help them kind of shift their mindset a little bit from just clocking in every day and seeing instead these opportunities to build more value for the practice, build more value for the patient, even, you know, and when they can show and demonstrate that value time and time again, they're gonna get that bonus, you know. And I think that's what's neat. That's something that I do with my employees as well. Is I say, okay, how I have, you know, it's pretty open discussion. Be like, how much do you want to make? And then we kind of reverse engineer that and say, okay, in order for me to pay you that, we need to deliver this much value to our clients, you know, and then totally guaranteed. It's just a career path to get them to that destination. And I think that's what's so powerful, because then they know exactly what they need to do and they can focus on that. Awesome. It's awesome. All right. So so we've talked about that. We talked about the importance of KPIs, kind of what they are. What do you feel like? So as far as how often are you looking at this? Are you looking at these monthly?
Yeah, I'm checking in monthly on them and just seeing that everything's kind of filled in at the end of the month. And then I'm looking to see like, oh, hey, are there things in kind of tends to go green or red for me? So what's in the red and why? And is it typical, not typical? Kind of looking at that on a monthly basis.
Yeah. Okay. So monthly, if someone's getting started, that's probably, would you recommend that? Just saying, hey, let's start with something that's realistic, do it every month. That's going to give you some good insight as what's going on.
Yeah.
And is that something that you review just individually, or do you review that as a team?
No, I don't review it as a team. Like my office manager and I will kind of download it, and sometimes we'll be able to see trends from that. And if something needs to happen to change that, then we'll talk about it. But my individual teams, the back office team or the hygiene team tends to just like be inputting it, and they have a, you know, from week to week, month to month, they have a general sense because they're inputting every single day, usually something. Then they have a good general sense of what's going on.
That's interesting too. As you were talking about that, Wes, I thought would you recommend, I mean, I know you mentioned earlier too, we've got a lot of technology here and some of this can just be automated. So there's no real user input required. But my thought was, do you find it just based off your experience, I mean, it's not empirical or anything, but just seeing what they've done, because the fact that they have to go in and do it every day or every week, they
Yeah.
obviously seeing it more, I mean,
Yeah.
would you make that almost a stipulation and say, even if you can pull it, hey, like if it
Yeah,
gets
I do
automatic,
for some
yeah,
specific things, especially on hygiene side, right? Like I think it's so critical that hygiene is like under because they're this little segment in the practice, they're providers and it's very numbers oriented and it's very easy to track. So
yeah,
I think it is important for them. Like you could get a lot of the data um automatically from your practice management software, but then it's just going to be like they're not going to see it. And then you're going to see it probably once a year. And you're going to be like, well, you're not doing very good here.
yeah,
And then they're like, well, I didn't know that. I thought I was actually
right.
doing pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
know that's the conversation that you want to avoid. I mean, you just want
yeah,
everyone to know where they stand at all times and have the ability to find that for themselves, ideally.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm listening to this, I'm sold on the idea of KPIs. What are the first steps that you would recommend that I take? Are you listing out a specific amount of
Yeah, let's
KPIs? Which
talk.
ones would you
Let's
start
talk
with?
like what one should we do? Like I
Yeah.
would say like there's a kind of a top four in every segment here. So if I'm looking at a dental hygienist, let's look at to me first and foremost reappointment rate on a
Mhm.
hygiene, right? How good is your hygienist at getting the patient to reschedule 3, 4, 6 months down the road? That is critical to having a strong hygiene program and having
Right.
patients and knowing where to put patients down the road so that a couple months away, you already know like where the holes are and where you're going to put your
Yeah.
patients and those things. So if your goal is to block schedule, which kind of everybody's like, yeah, I want to block schedule on hygiene or on the doctor's side. On the hygiene side, you have to be good at reappointment percentage, and that needs to be above 90%. So then, like my hygienist will see anywhere from 8 to 9 patients a day, and on their little KPI tracker, that's a Google sheet for today. They open it up that one day, and it says like, how many did I reappoint? 7 out of 8, right? 8 out of 8, 6 out of 8. You know what I mean? However many,
Yeah.
it's just a number. It's like, oh, I know I reappointed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these people today. Put it in, done. And then over time that builds and it creates a percentage rate. Are you over 90 or not over 90? And every month or so, you can kind of look back and say, dang, like I'm dropping below 90. Why?
Yeah.
What's happening? What conversations do we need to change in order to make that better? So reappointment rate, number one. Number two is perio to regular production. And by perio, for me, that means any codes that are different than the pro fee that related to scaling and root planing. There's two codes for scaling and root planing. There's periodontal maintenance, and any other kind of like pro fee with inflammation codes. Anything that's not a pro fee code that is related to the treatment that they did that day in the mouth, not X-rays, not any of that stuff. Then what did they do on that? And we just have them. We showed them how to run a quick report for that day. So it gives them a quick total of these specific codes. So we created that report in our practice management software. They hit it, they run it, total number, put in there,
Nice.
right? So
Mhm.
then and then that's also side by side with the total production underneath them for the day. So total production and and how much of it was perio, right?
Nice.
And we want that number to kind of be in the 20s, 30s would be pretty good, like of
Yeah.
overall production. And so that's where we try to go. So perio percentage, production per visit would be another good one. So then, built because it shows that like we had 8 visits today, like you can click on how many visits. So I had 8 visits today. We reappointed 7. That's the next box. What was my production per visit? Well, like you just take the total production for the day and it automatically divides that by the total production. And then I kind of know like what is my hygienist producing per day, right?
Yeah.
And then the final one, KPI, that's not necessarily that, whether it's individualized or one that the doctor is looking at, is what their compensation for that day is, right?
Right.
So then you kind of take their overall compensation for the month, divide it by their total production, and what percentage of compensation to production. And you want to be in that 33 to 35% range for compensation of like, this is what I pay them and this is what they're producing, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you start creeping above 35, you start to get up above 40, you are paying more than what you're getting out of that. So then you got to decide, well, hey, you either do two things. You pay them less or they produce more.
Right.
And it's a whole lot easier to motivate them to produce more than it is to tell them you're going to pay them less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so those are the four for me in hygiene. Those are the four main KPIs: reappointment rate, perio percentage, production per visit, and then their compensation to production.
Okay.
Those are the big four. So that's what I would start with. Then you can start adding in, well, treatment acceptance if you're good at, the way that you practice management software, that you put it in there, and if they accept the treatment, if they go through the treatment, you can start to kind of go through some of that fluoride, some of the other stuff, like the additionals that you're doing. Like, are you selling fluoride? Are you selling other things in the practice that that you can add on to that? Nice. So that's the dental hygiene team for like KPIs. That's where I would start.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, if you're, just looking overall, what else are you looking at? Just give me like a couple other top ones that you don't have to go through all of them, but just a couple other ones that you look at on a regular basis to see and gauge your progress.
So just overall office/doctor side, we're looking at a daily production rate, because I'm going to bonus my assistant team based off of my daily production. I need to hit a basic daily production in order for my assistants to bonus. That hopefully motivates them to say, well, if we're looking 2 days down the road and it looks like a low production day, can we look out 2 weeks and see if there's patients scheduled who want to move up and start building up our schedules better?
Yeah.
Right. And they have a hand in that. They can call a patient and say, hey, opening came up on this Thursday. Would you like to move your treatment up? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So daily production is obviously important. Treatment acceptance rate is always tough based off your practice management software.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you have to follow a specific protocol as you take the patient from inputting the treatment into a treatment plan, accepting the treatment plan, and then paying the collection, right?
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that with practice management software because people have to be perfect at clicking the button from proposed to accepted.
Yeah.
And if they're good at that, you can get that number. But that's a tough one sometimes I've found. Same thing, production per visit. Then you can kind of plan on like what you need for the day. And then supply costs as a percentage of revenue. So looking at kind of like what your percentage supply cost is and what it should be, and hopefully you're kind of in the 5% or lower. If you can get it down into the 4 and 3% and doing pretty good for your supply costs. Let
me ask you about that too. So if let's say you're above 5% on that, what are you looking at what are some ways that you can bring that down?
It's a conversation with your assistants and how and when you're buying stuff. And if you need to like look at like other ways, I mean, that's where groups really thrive. Groups get better discounts on your supplies, right? So ultimately it then comes down to like, okay, do I have to live with this type of product? Can I get a different, cheaper version of it somewhere else? And is it the same product? And I know that sucks as a dentist to have to make those decisions, but you don't want to run too heavy on that, or that starts to really creep into your operating income, right? Because every dentist wants to take home more.
Right.
Well, that's a big one right there, that if you're letting that run rampant, you're just making it way too easy for us to buy all the stuff. You need what you need.
You're right.
The question is with what you're going to spend on it and how often you buy it. Do you need to be smart? What I don't want it to ever do is lead, like you hear about, like people like, cutting cotton rolls in half, and you're not going to save money by cutting things, literally having your assistants cut things in half. It doesn't work, like you got to be smarter about where you're getting your products from, and then go find out and get a better supply chain deal.
Well, that's, something that SPP does, right? I mean, you can partner with them, that they're not taking over your practice, but you can gain access to that bulk discount pricing.
Of a good group, right? It's usually 15 to 22% discount saving off of what you're currently saving. So, if you're over, if you're 5-6%, you're going to drop down to hopefully 4.5 with a group pricing.
And that's what's neat about that is that you're not even changing anything that you're doing, I mean,
No.
other than just you're just ordering through the group.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so you talked about from the doctor side, your daily production rate, treatment acceptance rate, which can sometimes be a little difficult to ascertain, and then production per visit, and then supply cost. Supply cost
Yep.
as far as a percentage of revenue. What any other things that you're looking at from your perspective?
Um, just like you could start to look at, like, if you really want to separate, this would be a little bit more detailed, but you can really separate like composites versus porcelain crowns versus all those things, and really kind of start to understand like what you're diagnosing and what your trends are. We get so
Yeah.
fast, we get in a chair and we start to like look at things. I'm not saying that you should not to recommend something, then you shouldn't. But yeah, like, hey, do I get in the habits of diagnosing more of the less treatment just because I'm afraid to have that conversation about what really needs to happen with this treatment?
Yeah. Nice. Nice. Hey, well, that's a lot. That's great. That's great. That's like 8 or 9 KPIs that you can start with. You can add in the ones that any additional ones that you feel like you need to be looking at on a regular basis based on where you currently sit and where your goals are for the future. But that's tremendous. So last 2 questions. So Wes, if any last words, if someone's still on the fence about starting with KPIs, what would you tell them?
I would say, like, you got to ask your question, like, do you have a good handle on your business? Are you
Yeah.
really comfortable with it? And then the question to ask yourself is like, do you want to take home more?
Mhm.
That's usually the big one. And if the answer is still yes to that, then you're going to have to like get more detailed about where the money is going out, right?
Yeah.
And say, well, and then that once you understand what the business is doing, and without KPIs, it's hard to understand what the business is doing. Then once you understand what the business is doing, then you'll be in a position to make decisions and start training or start having conversations, because it won't happen on its own, right? You need to know where to direct your leadership on a daily, weekly, monthly basis so that it enacts change and thus could potentially lead to more operating income, which
Yeah.
means the doctor makes more, right? That's what
Yeah.
you want. And
Totally.
so if you don't have a handle on your numbers, you really, the only other answer to that is go and produce more.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you already feel like you're redlining it, then that becomes a really, really hard thing to do.
Yeah, no, totally. I love the empowerment that it brings too. It brings so much clarity as to what's going on, like you were saying, where is the money ending up? And then you can make decisions about that. But when you don't have any of that visibility, you can't complain. Like you're just stuck,
Yeah.
you're just reactive and you have to just accept that. So that I love that. Okay, last question is so tell me a little bit about what's going on with SPP. We talked a little bit about last time, but I want to hear from your end, and we talk off before the show, so we talk quite a bit about this.
Yeah.
But so for our listeners, so they know what's going on, and then if people are interested in getting in touch with you, where can they find you?
Obviously, the best way to get in touch with me personally, if you're on Instagram, just look me up, Dr. Weston Spencer, Dr. Weston Spencer. DM me, I will respond. I'm pretty good about that. I may have a blue check, but that doesn't mean like I'm anything special. Everybody's got a blue check now, so everybody's the same as they were. They
Yeah.
just paid the blue check. But no, so there, if you have questions about SPP Dental, right, you can go to sppdental.com. There's a lot of good information there, but it's again, just reaching out to me directly is probably the best thing. You're going to get answers to your questions right away with me. The thing I'm most excited about right now, as we've grown this group and as we continue to kind of make a little bit of headway in this space, DSOs for years, once they get going, their number one struggle is the fact that they've made a deal at the beginning with their doctors, and the doctor now has been paid a handsome amount. Not all, usually they reserve a little bit to like pay down the road if we
Little
achieve
carrot.
these,
Yeah.
EBITDA goals. But majority is there. And since they're not participating in the profitability of their practice on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, their only motivation is to just do as much dentistry as they can within their practice, right? To like
Yeah.
me, like I'm going to go do as much cosmetic dentistry because I'm getting 35% of what I produce, not what the whole practice is producing anymore,
Yeah.
right? And so you've taken away the operator of the business and incentivize that person differently. And DSOs classically have a problem with operations of the business. They want to control what's going on in the space, but their operator integrator that they paid already is no longer super motivated to keep doing it the way they've always done it.
Right. Yeah.
That is the classic crux of DSOs. But you just keep growing. As long as you keep adding more offices, doesn't really matter because your multiplier goes up and everybody's happy, right? But eventually the ball drops. And that's what we've seen with groups is the ball drops somewhere and the multipliers slow down when behind the scenes operations don't look the way they're supposed to. Yeah. So thus, like the genius I've always felt like in the model that we've created is we don't take the operators out, right? Like we're a minority share partner in offices. So the majority is still owned by the doctor, the operator, the one who cares the most, and is still going to be motivated by analytics and other things to make changes in his practice because he can benefit personally, he or she can benefit personally on a month-to-month basis if he makes a change.
Yeah.
Right. So the operators are still in place. The integrators are still in place. The culture of the business doesn't change and they can enact change and make more money on a regular basis. And
skin in the game.
Still participate on the group side with us, right? With that minority share, they can participate there. And down the road, the sweet carrot at the end is, hey, if you are ready to retire, sell, you've got this chunk of business that you're going to share in growth with SPP on that is far more valuable than what you would have been able to do on your own. So that's what gets me excited is as we grow and doctors more and more understand that, like, hey, once, we've integrated another 5 doctors over the last 4 or 5 months into our group. And guess what? We don't change anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We just are like, hey, how can we help you grow? What do you need help with? I need new patients. Okay. I've got a great marketing team who understands more than the average marketing person. And they're in it to just help you, not to drain your bank account on marketing, how to help you get new patients, right? I need help finding team members. Oh, you need recruiting. Okay, let's help. We've got somebody who can posting the ads, responding to the ads, find out if it's the right fit for you long before you ever get to the point of needing to do that first FaceTime interview and then do the working interview, right?
Yeah.
Like taking that out of the office. I need, building, like I have growing accounts receivable. That sucks. Okay. Well, we have a way to get that out of your office so that nobody in your office is focusing on that. Somebody outside the office is focusing on collecting that money and calling the insurance company for you. So you can focus on just being a good team in the office, face to face with your patients. Right. So that's what we're all about. Like, okay, we know what makes good practices run. What can we add to your practice to help you do it that way if you want? And if you don't, that's cool too. Just go on a ride with us. Like we'll make a bunch of money together. So anyway, well, that's the exciting thing that gets me going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what initially attracted me when I first heard about SPP. I think you were the one who told me about it originally. And it was that concept where it's not come in and we're going to take everything over, but it's you pick and choose how we can support what you're doing already. What is your vision? What are your goals? We want to support you to get those goals. You retain autonomy in your practice. It's such a compelling offer because that's what I think a lot of us really want in the end is just, we want support in achieving our goals, and that's exactly what it sounds like you guys do really, really well. So very cool. Okay. So, well, if you guys are listening, you guys want to get in touch with Weston, reach out to him on Instagram. It's Dr. Weston Spencer on Instagram. I'll put that up in the show notes, or you can visit sppdental.com to learn more about what they do and how they can support your practice. But again, thanks, Wes, for jumping on, my man. We'll have to have you back soon.
Absolutely, Mark. Let's do it again, man.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Take care.